She didn't get fixed. So then she goes, I don't even want it. How far did you go? We were only getting 29. I know it's probably up. Yeah, I was Rose decorating Christmas. Oh gosh, it's almost done. I've got to get on find some poinsettias. I want white ones. I put two pictures. Yeah, I mean, although I think that we just said it was a super store. Well, it apparently could. And I can't. She said she was so I'm sure. Whatever. She was trying to see her.
This wasn't John.
And I ended up saying that. Yeah, because I was it's all on camera. Yeah, and also, right. I mean, I hear, I mean, really tough if there's something else. But I figured
Spend time going back. I don't know.
is that their name? She looked back and it's like, I haven't ripped the sheet off of the back.
There we go.
It's like oil coming out of
Ready?
The yellow would come back.
it came back.
Try to wait for them to get a pause. Call to order the New Kent County Planning Commission meeting, December 15th, 2025. Welcome. Please stand if you're able for a moment of silence and then the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Mr. Ryder, could you please do the roll call?
Ms. Townsend,
Here.
Ms. Johnson, Mr. Moyer,
Here.
Mr. Dombrowski,
Here.
Ms. Thomas, Mr. La Rochelle,
Here.
Dr. Schmidt,
Here.
Mr. Bennett,
Here.
Ms. Rhodes,
Here.
Reverend Hathaway,
Here.
Mr. Davis.
Here. Thank you, Mr. Ryder. We have a quorum. Next on the agenda, approval of the minutes for the November 17th meeting. Does anyone have any corrections?
Mr. Chairman,
If I hear no corrections being made, I'd like to say that I would like to approve these minutes as presented.
Thank you, Ms. Townsend. I have a motion to approve the minutes for November 17th meeting. Mr. Ryder, could you please poll the commissioners?
Ms. Townsend,
Aye.
Mr. Moyer,
Aye.
Mr. Dabrowski,
Aye.
Mr. LaRochelle,
Aye.
Dr. Schmidt,
aye.
Mr. Bennett,
Aye.
Ms. Rose,
Aye.
Reverend Hathaway,
Aye.
Mr. Davis.
Aye. The minutes are approved. Next, citizen comment period. Comments are limited to those on planning-related issues that are not scheduled for a public hearing later on the agenda. And Mr. Silva, anybody signed up? No? No one signed up? So we'll close the citizen comment period. And next on the agenda is a presentation, capital improvement plan, CIP presentation. Mr. Hathaway, I assume.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and members of the Planning Commission. This evening, I will present my recommended FY26-27 Capital Improvement Plan. You should all have a document before you, and there's three parts that we're going to focus on today. The first being county capital projects, the second being public utility capital projects, and we keep those separate because the funding source is separate. The public utility projects are funded solely with user fees generated from the public utility system. And the third component is the departmental request forms. We've given you in your packet copies of what the departments have submitted for me as far as requests for capital expenditures for next fiscal year. So you get to see the same information that I've seen in putting together the recommendation. Now, I will note, though, there is in your packet, I do believe you have proposed fee schedules in the packet. I will not go over that tonight, and the reason being is it's really not part of the capital improvement plan. It is part of our process, and I've not had a chance to review those requests yet. What's in the packet is solely what was submitted by departments, but I've not had a chance to review and go through them, and most likely those numbers will change. And one part of our process as well, especially with public utilities, we'll have our financial advisors review those requests to make sure it's covering our operating costs, it's covering our new debt that we're proposing and that I will go over. And most important to me is it's consistent with the market too. I'm very cautious that we don't price ourselves out of the utility market. We want to remain competitive on economic development projects. So we will have an opportunity to do that evaluation before the fees are finalized. What is a capital improvement plan? Capital improvement plan is a strategic planning tool, and it is an important strategic planning tool that county staff and the Board of Supervisors use to plan for the long-term needs and short-term needs of capital expenditures. These are big-ticket items. Some of them are big-ticket items, and we try to plan 5 years out and beyond. To anticipate those expenditures. Code of Virginia, Section 15.2, 2239, gives planning commissions the authority to prepare and submit annually capital improvement programs to governing bodies or officials charged with preparation of budget. The Board of Supervisors may require that of the Planning Commission, and our board does ask that the Planning Commission review my recommendation and prepare its own recommendation to the board as part of its budget process. What is a capital expenditure? Facilities, equipment, or services that are valued at $25,000 or greater with an expected lifespan of 5 years. This comes directly from the county's financial policy. Capital expenditures also, we also include scheduled replacements of vehicles and computers in our capital improvement plan. The proposed capital improvement plan, and I will email this PowerPoint presentation to you. I don't believe that's in your packet, so I'll make sure that you get this. The total plan, the total 5-year plan, is $152,796,574. Just looking at next fiscal year, FY20, and of that $152 million, $7.2 million is proposed to come from capital fund balance. We have a lot of different sources. I'm sorry. The $152 million, that's for FY27, next fiscal year. And again, of that amount, for FY27, $7.2 million comes from the county's capital fund balance. We have a lot of different sources of revenues, and definitely we utilize grants, federal, state grants when available, proffers to fund our capital improvements program. And we have other revenues too, such as Colonial Downs revenue to fund our capital improvements program. Now, the 5-year total of our capital improvements program is $254,325,548. For the public utilities CIP for next fiscal year, which is FY27, the capital program totals $16,395,000. Of that, $395,000 is planned to come from the public utility fund balance. And the 5-year plan totals $53.7 million. Looking at, and I'm going to focus on FY27 projects, but please feel free to ask any questions regarding to the plan. I'll start with the airport for next fiscal year. And please feel free to stop me as well. For next fiscal year, for the airport, we do have an off-airport obstruction removal project. This is required by the Federal Aviation Administration to remove obstructions on the landing and takeoff approaches of the airport runway. And those obstructions are trees, basically. So we've been busy acquiring easements. We still have more easements to acquire on adjacent properties to the airport so that we can have the ability to go on those properties and remove trees, in some cases just top trees, to keep the obstructions clear. There's also a need for the replacement just due to the life of the existing rotating beacon. And I'm sorry, it's proposed to be rehabilitated for $30,956. Of that, the county's responsibility, the county's cost is $6,191. This beacon is used for the instruments on aircraft to land. We also have a need for some terminal and hangar roof rehabs on the airport, and it's in various locations, and we estimate that cost to be $25,000. Again, that is an expense that is reimbursable by the Federal Aviation Administration and the Virginia Department of Aviation. Our expected cost, anticipated cost, is $12,500. Total airport capital request, $405,956. Cost to the county, though, is $22,191. That's one of the great things about our airport. There are lots of federal and state assistance involved with the operation and capital and maintenance of our airport on many items. The match is 90% federal, 80% state, and 90% federal, 8% state, 2% county. So it's usually a good situation for us.
Mr. Hathaway,
Yes.
so does any of the income for the actual use of the airport from the person who's housing, where does those funds go?
It goes towards the operations of the airport. We do not have to pay that back to the federal or the state. We keep those revenues, and mainly we generate revenues at the airport by hangar leases and fuel sales. This year, we plan to build additional hangars. We have a long wait list of not just residents, but nearby people that want to house their aircrafts here in New Kent. Again, federal and state will pay for a good portion of that. We expect to increase our revenues with hangar leases, and if you have more airplanes at the airport, then you're selling more fuel as well. So. Administration, 2 items are being proposed for administration. One is the construction of a new courthouse, which we estimate at $70 million. Now, that's not all for the construction of a new courthouse. That $70 million also includes the renovation of the existing courthouse for use as administration offices. And we're planning that there will be some renovation for this current building to reconfigure office space in this building as well. So once we build the new courthouse, there will be a shuffle of administration office space, which is great for us because we're out of administration office space. So this kind of addresses 2 issues. The courthouse is totally out of space and admin is out of space. Anticipated cost is $70 million. You'll see 0 at fund balance requirement, and that's only because that money would be borrowed. And it's anticipated that we will borrow for this project. Architectural and engineering is underway right now. We'll borrow in the fall for this project, and that will go to our debt service, which is part of our operating account and not our capital account.
Another question for you, if
Yes.
you don't mind. Does this new courthouse have a way of, is this pushing back the updates of the old historic school?
This has no impact to the historic school. That's a separate project. And that's something we're going to be looking at with the board. I think that there's a path actually to address that, maybe even begin this fiscal year. But I'll be speaking with the board about that. But no impact to the historic school on this. And I say no impact because this is what we're borrowing. I believe that we actually have enough capital fund balance to do the historic school. I think there's a path there. Next is a New Kent Trust Fund. This is a recommendation of our Housing Advisory Committee to create a housing trust fund. This is several localities in the region have housing trust fund. We see setting aside a portion of our Rosie's revenue, Colonial Downs revenue, and dedicating that to housing opportunities. And what the Housing Trust Fund is, it's a dedicated source of funding where we can provide some down payment, closing cost assistance, some home rehabilitation assistance to residents in need, and also some incentives to developers to build what we're not seeing on the market right now, and that's affordable housing. And I just pause saying affordable because who knows what affordable is right now, but definitely homes that, and when we say affordable housing, we're not talking, and I've seen social media, we're not talking Section 8. We're talking homes that our teachers can afford, homes that our deputies can afford, our firefighters can afford. Because right now, it's very limited options here in the county. So for administration, total cost is $70,500,000. And none of that would come from capital fund balance. As I've mentioned, $70 million would come from debt service, $500,000 would come from our Colonial Downs revenues. Central Virginia Transportation Authority, we have several projects totaling $4.8 million. First project listed is a new roundabout at Route 155 and Kentland Trail to replace the temporary roundabout that's currently there. Next project is the I-64 Exit 211 Interchange Improvement Project at $2.5 million. Total commitment is $20 million. Anticipated expenditure for next fiscal year is $2.5 million. And the third project listed is Route 249 and Dispatch Road Roundabout, which engineering is complete. VDOT approvals are in place, and we're just waiting for the VDOT funding to go along with the $2 million of county spend. I believe the total project is about $8 million for that roundabout. Total cost of all three projects, $4.8 million. You'll see zero in the capital fund balance. All three projects are funded by the Central Virginia Transportation Authority revenues.
Sir, do you know what would be your projection on the roundabout work funded this year? When would you expect that work to actually start with the 211 Interstate Exchange and then a traffic condition on 249? Would this work be sequenced with other projects, or is it all going to hit at the same time?
All three projects?
Specifically the 249, the Townsend roundabout that Ms. Thompson's been talking about for a long time.
Yeah. I believe VDOT, and this is a VDOT administered project right now. I think VDOT has a start date of 2027, if I'm not mistaken. We definitely are looking for ways to push that a little forward. Part of the reason it's 2027 is the funding source that we're matching for this becomes available in 2027. But hopefully we can do it sooner. Route 155, Kentland Trail, I think that is also a 2027 project. The I-64 Exit 211, we could see that begin. They're building the bridge now, which ultimately is part of the project. But I think we'll really see the kickoff of the improvements next year with that. That's going to be a lengthy project. I believe the completion date for the Exit 211 project is September 2029. We know that a big driver of this is Buc-ee's. It's not the only reason. We have a lot of economic development that's here and more to come on the south side of the exit. But I will tell you, I mean, Buc-ee's, they're planning their opening date to align with VDOT's completion date. Economic development, small business economic development incentives. We have economic development incentive program, and we don't just target the huge industrial warehousing. We love and we look for opportunities to provide incentives for our smaller businesses to give them opportunities to grow and to establish new operations here in the county. Our Economic Development Authority has requested $50,000 to go towards that program. Economic sponsorship, we do sponsor 2 events at Colonial Downs. We are a title sponsor for the Virginia Derby. We are a title sponsor for the Festival of Races. That $125,000 comes from the revenues that we receive from Colonial Downs. So it's kind of like we're getting it from them, but we're giving them a portion back. So that's why you see 0 fund balance here, no impact on our capital budget. That's money that we receive from Colonial Downs. Visitor and Commerce Center expansion. We're in the very preliminary stages of looking at expanding that facility. $30,000 is requested for some preliminary architectural work. We are busier than we have ever been as far as economic development activity here in the county. And the current building, as you know, also houses our visitor center. And I would say, unfortunately, well, not unfortunately, because that's a good need too, but 80% of that building goes towards the visitor center space, and about 20% of the building goes towards economic development. Economic development is growing, and we need to grow that space as well. Fire and Rescue had 2 requests. We are looking at replacing Fire Station number 2. The construction cost for that facility is $6,442,000. That's purely construction. We actually purchased the property this fiscal year. The new site of Fire Station 2 will be the name just slipped, the landscaping business right beside JT's Barbershop. Giving Hope, yes. The county now owns that facility, and that will be the new location for Station 2. There also is a request for support fire apparatus, $90,000, which is a 2-ton truck that's used for hauling boats, hauling fire emergency services equipment. We also equip this, which is part of the cost, with plows, because we use this vehicle for snow plowing also. This will be replacing an existing vehicle that's about 15 years old and about 150,000 miles on it. General services, county facility rehab projects. This is basically just general maintenance of our county facilities. Information technology, $450,000 is the replacement of our surveillance system. With our cameras and our surveillance system, we can only get warranties on that equipment for up to 5 years. And after that 5-year period, our company will not back that equipment. So, and it's good to rotate that equipment and replace it with the newest technology. Our practice is every 5 years.
Sir, is that equipment used to monitor the IT rooms? What exactly is the surveillance system used for?
It monitors this entire campus. We have cameras in this building, courts, sheriff's office, human services, this entire complex. Parks and Recreation Master Plan, $40,000. We believe is the cost to hire a consultant to develop a long-range master plan for our parks and rec. I see this as an important process. Our recreation activities are growing. Our youth sports are growing. We hear it daily. Our board hears it daily. There's not enough softball fields. There's not enough baseball fields in the county, and we just want to be strategic in how we accommodate all of our growing youth organizations. So. Yes.
Pardon me, but I don't have my glasses. But is any funds being earmarked, aligned, anything for that sort for acquisition of property adjacent to waterfront for water access?
There's none being budgeted right now, but I can tell you, if something comes on the market, we have the fund balance to make that acquisition within a budget year, even if it's unbudgeted. We would be required to conduct a public hearing to do that, but there is a process where we can do that. And I can tell you that is a priority. I feel it's a shame that we're surrounded by 3 rivers and we have no public water access. So we're definitely looking for opportunities. If you know of any, please let us know. All right. Community development, you'll see $108,000 for purchase of development rights, $66,000 for affordable housing. These are proffers that we've received from the Farms of New Kent Planned Unit Development. That's where that funding comes from, and it's not new funding being allocated. This is funds carried over that will be carried over from this current year. School board. School board, which is probably, well, this year a little more than half of our capital improvements budget. I believe about $4.8 million of the $7.2 million are school-related projects. Bus replacements, $672,000, which seems like a lot of money. When I first my first budget, we were buying school buses at about $88,000, which I thought was a lot of money then. Now school buses are easily over $130,000, easily over that. New Kent High School roof replacement. This is a phased project, so you've seen this in our CIP for the last 2 years. This is the last phase, the last section of the high school roof that is in need of replacement at $280,139. One-for-one initiative, that's the Chromebooks. That's our annual cost for Chromebooks. We call it our one-for-one initiative because our initiative is that every middle schooler, every high schooler will have a Chromebook. In the elementary school, it's not one-for-one, but they pretty much have carts where they share Chromebooks. And $300,000 is the annual cost for that, and the schools lease the Chromebooks. District-wide paving, $100,000. The schools have identified areas within their campuses that are in need of repaving. HVAC maintenance, this is just general maintenance throughout the year, and it's based on previous expenditures for HVAC systems. Elementary school replacement, $58 million is what the schools have requested. Our Board of Supervisors and School Board are currently meeting and discussing how we can make that happen. You'll see zero in fund balance because obviously we would have to borrow that money, which would go into debt service, which would be part of our operating budget. New Kent High School rooftop HVAC replacements. It's hard to believe that our high school is 20 years old now. It seems like it was just yesterday when we opened it. We do have 2 units that are in need of replacement. They're at their life end. That anticipated cost is just over $1 million. There are also some heat pumps, which are water source heat pumps that are in need of replacement at $117,000, and then general roof maintenance at $35,000. We have a lot of flat roofs with our schools, and with flat roofs, they require more maintenance. Yeah.
Nowhere I see on any of these capital improvements is the high school isn't an evacuation center.
Yes, it is.
Do we monitor I'm sure we have to have a backup generator.
Mm-hmm.
Are all of those monitored in this budget, or?
Yeah, we currently have generators at the high school. I think we also use the elementary school here too. They have functioning full generators, and they're on a maintenance schedule, and they're monitored. And yes.
So do the school pays for them?
Yes.
In their budget, right?
In their budget.
Okay,
yes.
but they are monitored.
Yes,
to make sure that in case we need it.
Yes, they're on a contracted service, and they're started every so often. I'm not sure what the schedule is, and they do receive regular maintenance.
Okay.
We do have school vehicles, 1 car and 1 van, as our school population is growing. There are a lot of kids that aren't able to ride our buses. Some of them go to special schools outside of the county, and they need to be transported. So we do utilize a lot of vehicles for transportation of students.
Mr. Hathaway, if you don't mind for just a second, just to clear my mind, you mentioned debt service. Is there a separate debt service to the county in general versus a debt service to the school system?
No, it's
still under one
it's
umbrella
all
of the county.
one, right?
Are they separate items of debt service? For instance, is there basically one loan and then a second loan?
Yes, there are separate loans. They're in one account, but we do break it out, and I mean we track every borrowing we do, whether it's schools or a county. We track each separately, and they're listed in separate line items.
Thank you very much.
Mm-hmm. Annual paint. This is just for general paint during the summer when schools are closed. $50,000. Replacement of furniture, $100,000. George Watkins fan coil unit is in need of replacement at $415,000. New Kent High School athletic facility is being requested at $3.5 million. And that project is to be determined because we have some options there. I mean, the first option is to not do it. But we also have options to, if we proceed with the construction of a new elementary school, rolling that project into the financing of that new elementary school. This project involves bathrooms, a new concession stand, and locker rooms on the football field. There's also a need for upgrades to our current practice fields. A lot of it is just regrading, and that's $311,000. New Kent Middle School gymnasium upgrades, dealing with bleacher repairs and new backboards. I believe a sound system is included in that too, $99,000. IT infrastructure, $160,000, and elementary school playground equipment, $606,000. Playground equipment is expensive, as I know from our recent purchases with Pine Fork Parks and other park facilities. Total ask, $66 million. Our CIP fund balance commitment is about just over $4.5 million. Sheriff's Office, 2 mobile message boards at $44,300. As you've noticed, the 2 message boards at Exit 211, that's not VDOT, that's the Sheriff's Office, and I believe they're going to be there for a while, probably the next couple years. And the sheriffs utilize those message boards. A lot of county events and other items. So they are requesting 2 additional message boards. Also, the purchase of a new CAD system, which is the software for our dispatch station, at $560,867. Next item is Valorance pole cameras at $32,950. And I'll just say this is mobile surveillance equipment for areas that we have identified in the county in need of surveillance for various reasons. And the other item is the Axon tasers. These are all of the tasers that our deputies carry. Our tasers also want a 5-year replacement plan, and that's the longest we can get a warranty for. And after that period, the company no longer backs that equipment. So if there's any malfunctions after that 5-year period, the company will take no liability for that. So it's very important that we stick to that 5-year schedule.
Mr. Hathaway,
Yes.
is any of the revenue coming from Interstate 64 as to the citations that are being written?
Not right now. We haven't appropriated that revenue to any use. We're still trying to get a good handle on that revenue before we start spending it. I can tell you the first 2 months of violation notices that we've issued, we were in the 40,000 range. November, we were about 24,000. So, which is good because that means the citations are doing what we want people to do, and that's slow down and obey the speed limit. But that number is dropping. I will say right now, currently, we have a balance of about $1.8 million in
So will that
citation
go back
revenue.
towards capital improvements, or where's it? Or have y'all not determined what you're gonna do?
We've not determined yet. I can tell you the sheriff has submitted a request to the board to utilize that money for staffing. A problem with staffing is that's an ongoing expense. These are one-time monies. And I say one-time monies because as soon as the construction is done on I-64, we're no longer authorized to do the speed camera enforcement. But we are looking at utilizing those revenues. We believe that it could cover us if we do proceed with hiring additional deputies. It could cover us 3 or 4 years before our fund balance is impacted. So that's one of the uses that we're looking at. I can also tell you that there's discussions about using the money to buy down potential debt. We've mentioned construction of a new courthouse, and it has been discussed that those monies could go towards that project as well.
I would just say that, a portion of it, though, ought to go into like a savings account in case something in the county were to break down in between your budget.
Mm-hmm.
Well, at least you would have some access
Yep.
of some money to repair things,
Yeah.
and be prepared.
Yes, that's, and one other thing we're doing too is waiting to see what happens in January, to see if the state gives us the option of what that money goes towards. There were several bills in the General Assembly last session that mandated that those monies be used for specific things. There were even one bill that required us to give a portion back to the state. Those bills did not pass last session, but I believe they're going to be back in January. So we'll see where that goes. And voter registrar, we listed this project under the voter registrar's budget, but it's really a shared project with public utilities. This is a new community center at the Warren Eye Nature Trail. that would be a community center, but would also serve as a voting precinct as well. We're having a huge issue in the Eltham precinct right now in identifying a suitable voting precinct. We're so thankful to St. Luke Baptist Church right now, who has allowed us to use their facility, but that facility has some constraints as well as far as just size and parking. Ultimately, it would be nice to have a larger facility with more available parking. And there are no community centers in the east end of the county. And our community center, Quinton Community Center, stays booked. If you've ever tried to rent that facility, you've probably had a tough time doing so because it gets a lot of activity, and we're sure that a new facility on the east end would get just as much use. All right, and the rest is what's not shown is our computer replacement schedule and our vehicle replacement schedule and our copier replacement schedule. Computers, again, 5 years. For some reason with warranties and technology, 5 years is about as long as you can get. I wish we could get longer with our computers. We would definitely keep our computers longer. But 5 years with that. With our vehicles, 125 or it might be 150,000 miles. We replace county vehicles, 100,000 miles for public safety vehicles. And it's lesser miles for public safety vehicles because they idle a lot. Moving to our public utilities department, again, keep in mind, public utility projects are funded solely with our public utility fund generated by revenues for public utilities. There is a need for the construction of a new water tank in the Brickshire area. I don't know if anybody lives in Brickshire on the board. Yes, you may have noticed during peak hour periods, early morning and late afternoon, water pressure drops. And that's solely a capacity issue. By building more storage by way of this water tank, we'll address that water pressure issue, which is not only an inconvenience for homeowners, it's also a public safety issue. If we need to hook to a hydrant, we want to make sure we got the proper pressure to deal with fires. Anticipated cost, I believe that's a 2 million gallon tank, is $10.5 million. Water system interconnection project. This project involves connecting our Bottoms Bridge water system to our Quinton water system. So basically, it would start at Dispatch Road and go to the new subdivision in Quinton, Pomeroy Park, yes. By doing that, this ties Bottoms Bridge all the way to the Brickshire water system. It is our plan to eventually create one big looping system. So this is just another phase. The next phase will probably be tying Brickshire into this campus here in all of our schools.
Mr. Hathaway, so
Yes.
that ties in with my comment earlier about the roundabout and then possible simultaneous construction along 249.
Mm-hmm.
Can the work be sequenced where to minimize the impact? Because I don't need to tell you that road is challenging as it is now, and you
Yeah.
throw these projects in.
I'm hoping that we're going to be ahead of the dispatch project. I mean, VDOT could surprise me and expedite their schedule, but I think the county will be ahead of the VDOT project.
Comment on that. I think
Yes.
I believe the easements for that project,
It's already,
they're already set, and it doesn't lay as tight to 249 as you think it does.
Yeah.
So that'll kind of maybe keep a little bit of that off the road.
we got one more property to acquire easements from, and we should have that hopefully pretty soon. Sewer field assessment repair. This is the repair of the septic system at the Public Utility Office. That's an old system. We actually got that property from VDOT. It used to be an old VDOT station, and it's the original septic field there. So that field is in need of repair. Carbon control system reconstruction. This is at the Perham Landing wastewater treatment plant. Carbon control system. I am not an engineer, but I do know with our treatment process for wastewater, we do have a system of introducing carbon into the process to keep the bugs alive, which eats the bacteria and all of that from the wastewater to clean it. And that system is in need of repair. And AMI fixed-based meter reading. And this is basically software to go along with. We have been transitioning to the, don't know the proper term for it, but we won't have to get out the car and actually read meters. We can just drive by a street and collect all the meter readings with our equipment, and this is just the software to assist with that. Total budget, $16.3 million. Fund balance requirement, $395,000. That concludes the FY27 recommendation. Real briefly on the process. Well, first and foremost, I know you're just getting the materials today. As you look through them, if you have any questions, please feel free to contact me. We will check in with the Planning Commission as we get close to the period and time to advertise for a public hearing for the February meeting to gauge from you if you feel comfortable. If we need to push it back a month, we can push it back a month. We have that flexibility built in our schedule. But if we're ready for a public hearing in February, we'll do that at the February work session. Following that, we'll do that at the January Planning Commission meeting, but we can push back to February if we need. We have flexibility in our schedule. If we do proceed with the January public hearing and action is taken, if action is taken, I will brief the Board of Supervisors on the Planning Commission's recommendations at the February work session. I will present my total budget to the Board of Supervisors at the March regular meeting, which will include the capital improvement program. We'll have a budget retreat, and I'm sure we're going to discuss the CIP program the Friday after our March regular meeting. And we will have our budget public hearing at the May regular board meeting. State code states that we have to wait 10 days after a public hearing is conducted before we can adopt a budget. So we'll come back at the May work session to adopt the FY27 budget. And that completes my presentation. I'd be happy to answer any questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hathaway. Any further questions for
I have
Mr.
one
Hathaway?
question, sir. On the housing trust fund that's being proposed,
Yes.
you mentioned that your recommendation is that be funded from Rosie's money.
Yes.
Does that mean money that is Rosie's money that is being used for something else now will get redirected to that? And eventually, is that going to become a burden on the taxpayers is what I want to know.
No, that's a good question. Right now with Rosie's money, we haven't dedicated that to any use other than capital expenditures. So we have a very healthy fund balance right now, Rosie's money. At the end of FY, we're in 26 right now. At the end of FY25, June 30th, 2025, the fund balance on Colonial Downs funds was about $28 million. We anticipate in FY16, we'll probably generate another $18 million. in Rosie's money. Now, this will be the last year that we see revenues like that because of the state code change. But even going forward, we anticipate seeing about $8 million after that. So $500,000 out of that $8 million. It will not impact any of our operating expenditures because we only use that money for capital. And I know you might be thinking, that's a lot of money in fund balance, $28 million plus another $18 million. Well, the board is considering some large capital projects right now. I mean, one thing, and it's public, so I don't mind saying it now, we're looking at the construction, the feasibility of a new YMCA facility. We know that there's going to be other school capital needs. We know that we're going to have other large capital needs. There's a need for a fire station here in this campus, which will probably be in a couple of years at the earliest. You know, it's a shame we have all of our kids coming to this location, and the closest fire station is probably about a 10-minute drive at the most. So we have capital needs. So yeah.
So a follow-up, you mentioned that, the intent of that fund is first responders, teachers, et cetera. Is it limited to them?
No.
And so in this board, over the course of last year, we've had several discussions about this. Initially, there was discussion about AutoZone having trouble with hiring because employees can't afford to live here.
Yes.
And then now it's become teachers and first responders and stuff. So has there been any effort to solicit contributions from, if we're going to if some of this is going to be intended for AutoZone, Target, Matan warehouses, are they kicking in any money to fund this?
Well, now, and I'm so glad the state did this. Now, when businesses come to them and request Commonwealth Opportunity Funding, which is the state's incentive pot of money, those businesses have to come with a housing plan too. And not just a plan, but a real contribution. And I see us doing the same thing. And we're talking to AutoZone right now. AutoZone has big plans. I mean, they were committed to us to receive incentive funding. They were committed to hire 350 employees. They're at 450 right now. And they have even bigger plans of significantly increasing that number. So yes, we want them to be part of this solution too. And any new business that comes to us with 500, 600 employers, yeah, we're going to have that conversation.
Well, I think that's good because these are multi-billion-dollar corporations.
Yes.
And they have deeper pockets than the county does.
Yes.
And when they chose to develop here, this is a high cost of living
Yes.
community, right?
Yes.
So it's a concern to me. Is it a wage issue that their workers aren't making enough, or is it I just hate to see it become a taxpayer issue for New Kent taxpayers.
I really think it's a market issue. Nobody's building 1,200,000 square foot home right now. Nobody's even touching that 350, 400,000 price point right now. Pomeroy Park, I just found out today, I really haven't been following the sales in there, but I believe there's about a dozen sales, $900,000. And it's just builders aren't building that affordable option right now. And I also think the housing situation is costing businesses, and I can tell you it's costing counties too. My employees that stay the longest are the ones that live here in the county. Those that are commuting 45 minutes or more, I'm happy if I get 2 years out of them, 2 to 5 years out of them. And when those positions turn over, there's a cost associated with that, training and all of that. So, and the loss of knowledge too. So.
Mr. Hathaway, I was in attendance with the board's work session and the presentation by the Housing Committee. I think the idea was to provide some ideas to the board. There's still a lot of nuances that have to be flushed out, whether it's just that funds are dedicated or they're rotating funds, that eventually get repaid. All that has to be flushed out yet
Yes.
and considered by the board or by the housing committee.
Yes. I'm not just going to ask the board when it gets to the board to approve $500,000. The board will have a plan for the use of that $500,000, a program to approve as well. And we're working on that program and plan right now.
Other question, I actually have not heard the results, but did the General Assembly have, make the changes to the Rosies as we were sort of getting the income? Did they sort of stop it?
Yes, they did. We no longer get the revenues from the off-site facilities. Those other localities, we used to split the revenue in half with them. We both made the same thing, which was a great deal for us, a good deal for us. We no longer get that. Those localities keep all of their revenues now. But what the state did was they created a live horse racing fee tax. So for every day of live horse racing, there's a $110,000 tax associated with that. So yes, that comes directly to us. So with that live racing fee, on top of the revenues that we get from our Rosies here in New Kent, we estimate that we'll get between $8 and $8.5 million. A lot of that depends. The Racing Commission hasn't set the schedule yet for horse racing, so I'm not sure if it's going to be 50 days or 55 days.
Right.
I know there's been talk about both, but I believe there was a meeting today, actually.
It came out today.
Yeah, I think they met
And
today.
It looks like it's 51 days.
51 days.
3
Okay.
in March, and then 48 days during the rest of the year, including a day, Labor Day,
Okay.
which would be the extra,
Great.
the extra day.
Great.
And also, one of the things that in a number of discussions with the Hampton Roads Alliance and a few other places of workforce is one of the situations that we have here in Virginia that's a little bit different. We're going to have a possibility of 800 employees going to AutoZone. If they don't get lunch, if they don't buy gas in New Kent, we don't see a dime from them.
Yeah.
Okay, now we see lots of money from real estate tax, from their business property tax, but the employee themselves, there's no income tax. So all they go back to wherever they live. So that's our incentive to have them live here, is that property tax that we would eventually get. And right now they've gone through 2 increased phases in their income, in their wages. And they are still getting a situation where you can work pretty much overtime there too. And so their wages are getting up to that attainable, above the affordable. They're more the attainable wages, 80 to 90% of average mean income. So it is working, but it's a little bit different than other states where they have income taxes in local communities.
Yeah.
Mr. Chairman. Yes. Question. With the Housing Trust Fund, there are some tremendous opportunities for that. But can you speak about how that can be used possibly? And I'm more concerned about some monies for first-time home buyers, some monies for seniors in substandard housing that can't buy a house but can fix theirs up.
Yeah. We don't believe that there's just one thing we should focus on with this money, because there's a lot of different housing needs. Down payment and closing cost assistance is a need. We know we have seniors in homes that are not accessible for them, handicapped accessible. We see money going towards that. I see the need for a weatherization program, which is huge, especially for our senior community. You just have very old homes that are in need of insulation and just things to keep them dry and warm. And again, I think there's opportunities to partner with the business community in utilizing some of this funds to provide some new housing opportunities.
And one last question. Can you clear up the fact, because I'm hearing this in the community, about Section 8 housing?
Yeah, this is not going, I don't see this project benefiting Section 8 housing. We're not going to get into vouchers. And we're really not reaching that income limit, that household income limit, which normally I believe Section 8 is probably around that 30%, maybe 60% medium household income. I see us touching those families that are working, gainfully employed, that probably are at, some of them may be as high as 80% of the median household income for this community. But for whatever reason, they just aren't able to make that step into a housing opportunity. And it might be they don't have the capital they need to afford a down payment or closing costs for a purchase. I just don't think, well, number one, $500,000 for a Section 8 program is not going to take you very far because those programs are heavily subsidized. And we just don't have the resources for that. A lot of those Section 8 programs are rental programs also. Rental is part of our I think there's opportunities for rental, but I see us focusing more on home ownership opportunities, and not everybody is at a point where they're ready to be a homeowner. So I just don't think we have the resources to focus on that Section 8 need.
Mr. Chair, to talk about that, on average age of a first-time home buyer right now is 38.
Yes.
If they're 38 and they're probably rented for a number of years, they still may not have the capital to put down, but they're probably used to a very high rent.
Yeah.
And what we see here in New Kent is single-family homes that are renting from $2,000 to $4,000
Yes.
a month. We don't have any apartments, any housing, ability to have that person go into without them buying something. And if they're buying something, it's going to be, like we've said, well over $400,000 to $500,000.
Yeah.
And one of the things I mentioned in the Board of Supervisors meeting is right now the Virginia Housing, which is a subsidiary of the Virginia state government, has a $10,000 grant program for first responders, teachers, and government workers for a grant on down payments. And that, a $10,000 would get you in, just that would get you into a $300,000 house with, for your down payment. If you got any more, then you could go further. But it's not the monthly payment that these people are worried about. It's usually capital.
Yeah.
Some credit, is a problem too, but that you can't do anything about that. That somebody has to work on themselves. Yeah. But that also going back what Reverend Doctor was talking about, I believe there's a portion, about 30% of that was being looked at, increasing that ability for those houses that we already have in the community to be upgraded without the possibility of their assessments going up because they're being improved.
Yes.
That's what we have to watch out for. That if somebody needs a new paint on their outside of their house, that we don't all of a sudden assess their property a lot more because of that, because we do that. So that'll be taken into account too. So there's a lot of nuances in this, and we are baby steps towards what Henrico did with $60 million. And, you know, that they received due to the fact of their data center campuses. You know, that's what they've seen to be a very good step to help with that. And because of that, we will be getting a lot of our workers for a lot of our businesses from East Henrico because of that plans that they have there. Thank you.
And sir, so Mr. Moore just talked about, I think VHDA and the first responders, and I think they also do first-time home buyers. I mean, there are state-funded programs.
Yes.
And I'm sure there are federal-funded programs, I would assume, and that will all be, those programs would be tapped first, I hope, before this one.
I'm hoping we can leverage our dollars to bring in more dollars as part of this. So yes. One of the other recommendations that came out of the Housing Advisory Committee was to hire a housing coordinator that could kind of create a listing of all those resources and help families in need looking for homeownership opportunities and kind of walk them through those processes to apply for those state and federal grant opportunities. So yes, we definitely want to tap into those.
One more thing, and me speaking as a realtor, we don't do a really good job in talking to these first-time home buyers about what is available out there. There's a lot of stuff available out there, and that coordinator would be able to guide people that way. And I think they'd be a valuable asset, especially in that young, new population of our teachers, firefighters, and police. Thank you.
Yes.
Quick question. There we go. I noticed this is just something I look at. We talk about building affordable housing within the community, and I look at public utilities and the amount of requests on the docket for what they need. Do we have a number that we can sustain on our utilities currently? And what is that number, and where are these locations going to be? Because if you I look at dead zones in the sense of building. If we're going to build affordable housing, whatever we call that, whatever you want it to be, people can afford to buy and live there. Right. We have to put it within our public utilities in order to continue the revenue that the public utilities makes, but also to be a little bit in control of where it goes. And there's many dead zones in the county. And I know the big thing in here, and it's a 5-year look, is where do we get water from and where are we going to treat the water? And that's in here. It's been on here since I've been on the board. It's been on here every year. It comes up, and I understand why. What is that feasibility? And I'm sure Mike probably knows what that is, but where do we sit and where can we put it? And once we decide where we can put it, that comes to us when the code changes and we rewrite the code. How do we design the code within the comprehensive plan to put it in the county in locations where, one, the infrastructure is there, roadways, sewer, I mean, broadband's already coming all over the place, but where can we make it easily accessible? That's going to reduce if we can have areas in the county, we can reduce the cost per square foot to build those 1,200 to 2,000 square foot homes that are going to be affordable for these people. I know as a builder, there's no possible way right now to build a home under $200 a square foot. The prices are just too high. So at 1,200 square foot, you're looking at $240,000 plus all the other fees that go along with it. That's where you're getting your $300,000 for. Yeah. We as a board and as a county need to decide where we want to put it and how do we make it easily accessible for the builders to build it. That's what the comprehensive plan was put in place for. Yes. We've adopted that.
Yes.
So that's what, I look at this budget and say, okay, where do the utilities need to be? And then say, okay, now where do we start pushing developers and builders to go? Exactly. And how can we incentivize them? Well, the less lot price, you look at some of these fee change numbers, that's not going to push the cost of building a new home down if the fee changes are going up. And some of those are
And
pretty high.
I can
And
assure you
$9,000 is a
that's
lot.
not gonna, I mean, those.
I know,
fees in
and I know.
there,
I know
yeah.
you would discuss how you're gonna talk about those, but
Yeah.
I'm just looking at that in this perspective of
that's
where do we
the
want to
point.
put it, and
Yeah.
where can we say this is going to help us, and
Yeah.
I think that having someone on staff to help those first time buyers and things like that is important, especially as the time goes on. But we need more rooftops, and we know that if we want to keep people here, we want to make the money from them living here, going to X, Y, and Z. We want another grocery store. We put rooftops in the middle of the county. Where else can we put it?
Yeah.
And then we need to focus on how can we make that affordable for the builder to come in and build it. And that's where we're going to see the proffers. That's where you're going to see the improvements for Parks and Rec. I mean, 95% of those should have been funded by Farms of New Kent. I mean, there's so many things that have been kicked down the line over the course of time that now we can. It's our job to put them in the right place and say this is where it's going to be, and that will increase the number of roofs that we can build.
Yeah.
We need to build roofs, whether it's for people to buy, people to rent. We get that. I mean, we look at the project in my district. I mean, it's been what, John, 3 years since we saw that site plan, and we haven't. I mean, they finally hit the trees this week, but they haven't done anything else. I mean, there's so many things that can be done, and maybe it doesn't require as much funding as we think if we can get the businesses to do it.
Yeah.
So it's just something to think about. The comp
Yeah,
plan's there.
good
It's
point.
time for us to say, this is where it's going to go. This is where we want you to be. How do we get you in there? How do we get you in there at $280,000, $320,000 homes? That's what we need to do. It's to say, we need you here. How much can you do it for? Not, let's just wait and let it be the Wild West of New Kent and just say, what's going to happen? Let's say, you're going here. How can you build it for us inexpensive, and how fast can you get started?
Yeah, that's a good point. I mean, we have a great comp plan. A lot of time and effort went into putting that together. We've identified growth areas in the county. Now it's up to us to make sure we have the proper infrastructure in those growth areas to attract development.
Mr. Hathaway, one of the concerns that I have is that when we look at attainable workforce housing, we're not looking at just one style.
Right.
Because there are multiple styles. And the second part is if there is an existing subdivision, we need to ensure that there is a buffer. That if, and I hope I'm saying it right, if we're talking about Brickshire, and you want to put an attainable workforce housing there, it needs to look like what's already there.
And that comes down to the code. That needs to be written in the sense of
it's got to be.
This is what we want it to look like.
Yeah.
Right.
And it needs to stay in those, whether it's in the CUP for, whether it's in, not the CUP, but whether it's in the PUD for Brickshire or PUD for Farms of New Kent, Patriots Landing, all of those districts have requirements for what it should look like. And sometimes they fall by the wayside, and some things are by right, and that is just. When you're by right, you fall within those guidelines. But you have to fall within the guidelines of look, and I agree with you 100%. There's 20 ways to skin the cat in the sense of the types of homes that we can build and the types of housing we can build. It doesn't all have to be on one level. It can go up. I mean, there's so many things in our that's going to require more capital funding because the fire department's going to need more things to take care of those. The higher you go, the more they need. They only have a certain truck for a certain amount. I mean, there's ways to look at it and for us to put it in the place, and the area is there within the comp plan to say this is where it needs to go. What's the infrastructure that we need? I mean, it's in here. It's just a matter of saying where's the money going to come from.
Yeah.
And that's the end of the day. Where's the money come from?
Yeah, and now's a good time to look at that as we're beginning the process of rewriting our ordinance. Definitely, those are things that we should think about when we're writing that.
I have one last comment. I saw a report recently that said that roughly 20%, I think it was 20 to 30% of a community cannot afford any housing. They just don't have the income for a house. And that's why having some money in there to fix up substandard housing is good. It allows them to stay where they are and have a better quality of life.
Yeah.
Well, thank you, Commissioners. I know, Mr. Hathaway, we got into a little deeper discussion than maybe you anticipated with
that's
CIP,
all right.
but
That's
nonetheless,
all
a good
right.
discussion. So we thank you, sir, for all your time and your work from you and your staff.
Thank you.
You're welcome to come back anytime.
All right. Now on to unfinished business. Mr. Silva, none? And now new business. We have a consideration of PC 22-25, an exception request of Carol D. Randall Sr. on behalf of the Randall family from Section 91-26A6 of the New Kent County Code regarding private roadway standards for certain family subdivisions.
Thank you,
Silva.
Mr. Chair, and good evening, members of the Commission. For the record, my name is Patrick Silva, Principal Planner with the Department of Community Development's Planning Division. Again, here this evening to present on the roadway exception that you just heard a little bit about. So again, the request was made by Mr. Carroll Randall Sr. on behalf of the Randall family, requesting an exception from Section 91-126A6 of the County Code to waive provisions requiring the construction of a new permanent 50-foot deeded right-of-way constructed in accordance with the public roadway standards of the ordinance in relation to a proposed family subdivision of tax map 36-49, a property located off of Stage Road, zoned A1 agricultural. So that is the context of the property there. You can see Stage Road, the white line in the southern portion of that graphic. The property itself is accessed via a private right-of-way that runs through the adjacent property, the sort of more tan-fielded property located immediately to the east there. So a little bit of background. So in December 2016, the Board of Supervisors adopted an ordinance which established the exception process that is, tonight's exception was based in. So again, this exception process, it was intended to allow for exception requests relating to the otherwise required public road construction requirements, often due to the unnecessary burdens that they can promulgate for applicants, either by cost or sort of asymmetrical context where the requirements don't match what is being requested and an exception is found to be appropriate. So a little bit about what Mr. Randall is requesting. So while the proposed configurations of the lots associated with that family subdivision I mentioned are still being finalized, Mr. Randall has conveyed his desire to execute a family subdivision to create 3 new lots for his children to build their residences on. So all of these new lots are proposed to be accessed via individual driveways, accessing said lots directly from a proposed private right-of-way, which is proposed to be surfaced with gravel, would not be a true deeded right-of-way and would measure less than 50 feet in width, but would still be designed, of course, to allow for the safe passage of emergency vehicles. And because family subdivisions involving the creation of 3 or more new lots, again, it's 3 new lots that are proposed in this case, normally require that the lots be accessed via a newly constructed, permanent, deeded 50-foot right-of-way, which meets VDOT geometric and construction standards. So, think base material surfaced with asphalt or concrete. The applicant has then requested an exception to those requirements so that the surface treatment of the private right-of-way can be gravel, and again, would not be a permanent deeded right-of-way, and the right-of-way width would measure less than 50 feet in this case. So to speak to staff's consideration of this exception request, according to 2024 VDOT traffic counts, unfortunately, the 2025 counts aren't available until September of that following year, so we won't have those for a few months. But I would imagine they have largely stayed the same. Stage Road is a moderately low traffic volume road and would have sufficient capacity to accommodate the 3 new lots proposed as part of the family subdivision without impacting traffic conditions in a substantial or negative way. As such, the proposed private right-of-ways, again, are not anticipated to adversely affect traffic. And furthermore, the proposed private right-of-way, so again, that portion that they're asking would be allowed to be surfaced with gravel instead of asphalt or concrete and measure less than 50 feet in width, would again be designed in such a way so that emergency vehicles would be able to easily access the new lots. So staff doesn't have any concerns about potential impacts to the ability of emergency service personnel and their ability to access the site. The final point that staff kind of found as a key consideration here is, again, the proposed gravel private right-of-ways construction standards and geometry would largely be consistent with those of the private right-of-way that are used to access the site. So again, The site that is highlighted there is accessed from Stage Road via a dirt and gravel road that's about 20 feet in width that runs through that neighboring property. So if you think about it, it would be quite jarring to come down that dirt road and then see the 50-foot asphalt road accessing this site that would normally be required. So staff felt very comfortable with the fact that the proposed right-of-way would be largely consistent with the private right-of-way used to access the site in general. So, did it go off screen here? There we go. All righty. So, in conclusion, staff is recommending approval of the exception request, and I'm available for any specific questions you may have. I did also want to take a moment to acknowledge that the applicant, Mr. Randall, is here this evening in case you all had any questions for him as the applicant in the exception request. But that concludes this presentation.
Thank you, Ms. Silva. Any questions?
I do. You said that there's 3 sites?
So, as part of the families, it's one lot right now. But as part of the proposed family subdivision, which again has not yet been approved, he's proposing to create 3 new lots out of the single existing
So out
lot.
of the photo, you have the one lot there.
Yeah, that's
would it
right.
Be the other would it be those other 2?
So this would be separated. So one half would essentially be the remainder lot as it's proposed now. And then there would be 3 lots created for his children. Those 3 new lots would measure approximately 2 acres to 2.75 acres in size.
Okay, the easement will go with the property if the family member sold that lot?
The gravel right-of-way, the ability to access off of it? Yes, absolutely. Mm-hmm.
Can you show the access? I see the white dirt road there. So
Yep.
how will they get into those 3 lots?
So they're proposing, so again, they would still be accessing the lots themselves via this dirt road here. They would be that. So typically what the requirement is that, the requirement doesn't at all pertain to what would normally be improvements of this portion. Usually what they would be required to do is construct a new 50-foot deeded right-of-way that, again, would be surfaced with asphalt or concrete that would access, would be kind of, you could picture it being built in the middle of the site here. And then from that right-of-way, the individual building lots would be accessed by driveways. So in this case, instead of doing the 50-foot deeded right-of-way that's built with those construction standards and geometry, it would be a gravel private right-of-way instead. But it's the same idea. Individual driveways would access the building sites off of that private gravel right-of-way.
So, Mr. Silver, for clarification, and so from the yellow parcel that you show, the driveway portion from the yellow parcel all the way to Stage Road is not a part of the discussion.
Not a part of this discussion at all.
It's only at the parcel.
That's correct. Yep. The only reason I brought it up was to kind of highlight that the construction standard of the proposed right-of-way would be equivalent to or higher in quality than that existing right-of-way through which the lots are accessed, but that's not involved in this exception request at all tonight.
Mr. Silva.
Yes, sir.
Is there any possibility that after this subdivision of the parcel into 4 lots, it's currently 1, it would be 4 total, that there could be any future subdivision of any portion of those 4 lots?
That's a great question. I think the remainder lot would be large enough to allow for subsequent family subdivisions. The individual building lots that would be created would not, though. And again, it's a little difficult for me to say since a family subdivision has not been formally approved, so we don't have an exact clear sense of what the final acreage will be associated with each lot. But as it's proposed, I believe the remainder lot would technically be large enough to allow for, based on the zoning, actually really only a family subdivision.
But those future lots, if it should occur, would have to have their own water and sewer disposal systems per lot.
Oh, absolutely.
So that uses
Yes.
up some of the areas of those lots.
That's correct.
To prohibit re-subdivision. Okay, thank you.
Yes, sir.
And Mr. Silva, is there a scenario where from Stage Road to the parcel proposed family subdivision, is there a possibility that future right-of-way would be developed to VDOT standards or the 50-foot? Is there a scenario where that could occur?
That's a great question. I don't see it happening in the near term, I'll say. There is always the potential something like that could be triggered. Let's say, for example, that neighboring parcel were to also want to pursue some sort of subdivision request or approval pathway that carries similar access improvement requirements. The family subdivision is one, but some of our other subdivision requests have kind of similar requirements attached to them. That could potentially trigger the requirement for those lots to be accessed via something similar. And in that case, they might choose to improve that existing dirt road. It's possible. We certainly haven't heard of any interest in doing something like that. And frankly, I don't think it's super likely in the short term, but it's a possibility.
Two things, Mr. Silva. One, I know nothing about the Randalls, but I do know that we're going to keep some of our people in New Kent that maybe would have gone someplace else if we don't do something like this. This is the easy stuff for that housing situation we're talking about. And if I'm correct, that easement that's from the yellow block to Stage Road will always be there because it's been used that way. Thus, it's permanent.
Certainly, if it's not, and I wish I had the sort of easement language in front of me. I don't, unfortunately. If it's not already codified that way, certainly the state has provisions for prescriptive easements that have been in use for X amount of time.
Mr. Randall,
That easement was granted through the New Kent court system back in 1996.
Because
it
can't be landlocked.
Right.
That's exactly
the property to the east there is a 46-acre parcel owned by one family. And then my 12-acre parcel there is one of 3 other family parcels. So the easement in there right now is being used by 2 families, my family and the owner of the 46 acres. So it's a private, it's a private drive. That's, we have an agreement on. Yes.
I have a question.
Go ahead.
Emergency vehicles can access in there, no problem?
Certainly got the width that they look for, more than actually what is the minimum they typically require.
Thank you.
And with broadband, could still be in that right of way?
That's a good question. The right-of-way accessing the lot from Stage Road, I would potentially need to take a look at some of that easement language to see if it does allow, is inclusive of utilities and that sort of stuff, telecom connections. Well, there you go. The applicant just stated, it currently has it. So there you go.
Any other questions for the applicant or Mr. Silva? If not, I'll entertain a motion.
Mr. Chairman, I'll entertain it. In order to address and protect and promote the public conveniency, the necessity, general welfare, and the good zoning practices in the county, I move to adopt resolution number PC 2225 to forward the exception request made by Carol D. Randall Sr. in behalf of the Randall family to the New Kent County Board of Supervisors with a favorable recommendation.
Thank you, Ms. Townsend. I have a motion for a favorable recommendation for PC 22-25. Mr. Ryder, can you poll the commissioners, please?
Ms. Townsend,
Aye.
Mr. Moyer,
Abstain.
Mr. Dabrowski,
Aye.
Mr. LaRochelle,
Aye.
Dr. Schmidt,
Aye.
Mr. Bennett,
Aye.
Ms. Rose,
Aye.
Reverend Hathaway,
Aye.
Mr. Davis.
Aye. Motion carries with a favorable recommendation, PC 2225. Thank you, Mr. Randall. And now on to public hearings, and with that, I'll turn it over to our public hearing chair, Ms. Rose.
Thank you, Mr. Davis. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Tonight we have one public hearing for consideration. It has been properly advertised and noticed. Let me go over a few brief comments on the format of the public hearing. We'll start with a staff report where they will outline the application and their recommendations. Then the applicant will be allowed to speak to provide additional information on the application. The commissioners will have opportunity to ask questions of staff and the applicant. Once that is completed, we will move on to the public comment portion. If you've signed up to speak, you will have 3 minutes to speak. You will come up to the podium, state your name and address for the record, and when the timer sounds, you should be concluding your comments. So I will open public hearing application CUP-04-25 Old Telegraph Verizon Telecom Tower.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. And the first and final public hearing item for your consideration is the CUP request that was just highlighted again. This is a request for approval of a proposed communications facility, tower/radio, cellular tower between 75 and 200 feet. Located at 12400 Pocahontas Trail, just behind the county's Providence Forge refuse disposal site. Pursuant to Section 98-62 of the County Code, such uses require CUP approval in order to operate within the A1 zone, which is the zoning designation of this particular parcel. All righty, so that is, again, the subject site in the request, just off of Pocahontas Trail there at the intersection of Pocahontas and Old Telegraph. The tower would be proposed to be located just behind that refuse site. And that's kind of a zoomed-in portion of the general concept plan, so you can see the refuse site kind of located in the center there, with the tower located immediately behind the site. Give you a little bit of a close-up idea of how things would be arranged. All right, so a brief overview of the request and some background of the proposed use. So again, the applicant is intended to construct a 195-foot tall monopole telecommunications tower with a 4-foot lightning rod on top in order to provide enhanced wireless voice and data service capabilities for Verizon wireless service, plus room for an additional 3 users, including New Kent County, on the tower. A 10,000 square foot lease agreement for the tower area was approved by the Board of Supervisors already on September 29th and then finalized with the county on October 8th of this year. A subsequent balloon test intended to assess visual impacts of the proposed tower was conducted at the subject site by the applicant on October 20th, 2025 from 8 a.m. to noon. Public notice of the balloon test was advertised in the daily press, and notices were also mailed to adjacent property owners to alert them of the test. To highlight some of the sort of staff analysis relating to the request, not a ton to go through, but a few key things I'll mention is Environmental Division staff did note that because the site is encumbered by RPA and RMA, which is to say Resource Protection and Resource Management areas respectively, it is therefore designated as a Chesapeake Bay Preservation Area parcel, and should the CUP be approved, compliance with Chapter 82 of the County Code, which relates to environmental considerations of land development, would be required at the site plan stage. So again, though the CUP is being reviewed this evening, a formal site plan submission and approval would still be required subsequent to this, should the board approve the CUP. To address planning staff's consideration, while the proposal is not anticipated to cause any negative impacts, and there, as it relates to traffic, noise, the usual things we hear about, and there will be no need for new or expanded county infrastructure as a result of the project. Compliance with specific use-based conditions as required by our county code have still been added as conditions of approval for this request. So this is a lot, I won't get too in the weeds on it. It's a lot more kind of technical information related to things like FAA compliance, making sure that it's not interfering with other service, that sort of stuff. Compliance with those conditions that are codified in our ordinance was added as a condition of approval to the CUP request, just to make sure everything is being implemented as the ordinance would require it be. Again, in looking at the application materials that were provided with your meeting packet, the applicant did kind of go through and do an item-by-item addressment of their plans for adherence to those aforementioned conditions as part of their CUP application. In addition, should the board approve the CUP request, again, as I mentioned, site plan approval would still be required in order to construct the tower, and additional site plan performance standards that are specific to this use, as articulated in our county code, will also be evaluated and addressed at the site plan review stage. So, all that, a lot of those CUP conditions of approval and site plan conditions are duplicative, but that's kind of our avenue for ensuring that what is proposed to be built actually complies with what they're required to comply with. Finally, in order to better ensure that the use commences operations in the near term and there's not a sort of blanket CUP approval hanging over the property, staff did add a sort of sunset clause property that you might be used to seeing at this point, requiring that the CUP will expire on the 5th anniversary of its issuance if the applicant has not obtained a building permit and commenced construction of the tower, unless an extension of the CUP is approved by the Board of Supervisors. Ultimately, staff is recommending approval of the request, but I did also want to take a moment to highlight that the applicant, Lisa Murphy, is here this evening, who will do a little bit of a brief presentation to tell you about the project from the applicant side of things and answer any questions you might have for her as the applicant.
Got it. Okay, I'll go backwards. Good evening, Chair, Vice Chair, members of the Planning Commission, and staff. For the record, my name is Lisa Murphy, and I'm counsel to the applicants, the Towers LLC, which trades as Vertical Bridge, and Selco Partnership, which trades as Verizon Wireless. I have with me today Renzi Yates, who's also available to answer questions if you have any that I might not be available to answer. Thank you to Patrick for a thorough presentation and review of the application. We appreciate all of his hard work on this. As was mentioned, the conditional use permit is for the purpose of constructing and operating a 195-foot self-support monopole wireless telecommunications tower with a 4-foot lightning rod within that 10,000 square foot leased portion of the county's old telegraph refuse site. The property itself is just under 3.5 acres and it's zoned agricultural district. So why are we here? When I started doing this in 95, 96, wireless phones were a nice to have, not a have to have. They were used by the traveling public. Realtors had them. Mostly realtors were the first ones to have them. But they were a nicety. As you fast forward, in December of 2007, just under 16% of folks were wireless only at home. By December of last year, which is the most recent statistics we have, 79% of adults, households, and just under 87% of children lived in households that were wireless only. So you can see from we've gone from an infrastructure that was a nice to have to really a have to have at this point. And this is something that folks are looking for when they're looking to move into a community. Today, 80% of 911 calls are made from wireless phones. And we've gotten to a point, there's more than one wireless device for every man, woman, and child in the U.S. And we've got a network capacity issue. So we've got the number of users has skyrocketed, the number of uses, whether it's surfing the internet, YouTube, streaming Netflix, shopping for presents for Christmas, or just contacting, having those remote meetings with doctors and other providers. We've now greatly expanded and outstripped the capacity that's in the network. So as I mentioned, the growing number of users and uses, we need additional wireless facilities. This just gives you that chart. It's fascinating. The older folks are less likely to be wireless only, but they're still almost 60%. Just about everybody's over that 80% number. Most millennials have never had a landline. They don't know what it's like to pay the deposit, to get the landline phone, and to go plug it in. So this is the young folks today just have no frame of reference for what it used to be like. This is in your packet. This is actually the network map for Verizon Wireless. The site that you see in the middle, it's a little bit hard to see, but that's the red pin there is the site that we're talking about, the old telegraph site. The yellow pins around it are existing sites that Verizon is already on. And I just wanted to highlight a few of those. So to the northwest, about just over 4 miles, you have a tower called New Kent Courthouse that Verizon's already operating on. Then if you go to the approximately 3.3 miles to the east, there's the New Kent Fire and Rescue, which is a little bit harder to see. That's right over here. There's a tower labeled Chickahominy Tower that's 2.84 miles to the southeast, down here. A tower labeled Sturgeon Point Road, that's 5.8 miles to the south. You can see down at the bottom of your screen. This red circle is a 5-mile radius of the proposed site, just to give you a frame of reference. There's a tower labeled Munford, and that's just over, just under 6 miles away to the southwest. A tower labeled Kent Reeler, and that's 7.36 miles to the west. That's way over here outside that 5-mile circle, excuse me. And then a tower labeled Providence Forge, which is approximately 2.1 miles, and that's just to the northwest of the site. So like the networks of all the other wireless companies, Verizon's going to use existing structures that are there. It's faster, it's cheaper, it doesn't involve the capital outlay or the infrastructure that's required to develop a new site. As I went through all of the sites here in the 5-mile radius, anything within that 5-mile circle that's already existing, Verizon is already on. So that just gives you a sense. As I said, it's a lot faster to go on an existing structure that's already there. So how do we identify a site? So in zoning a wireless site or obtaining a use permit for a wireless site, we have this overlay of the needs of the property owner. So the carriers aren't, they don't have powers of eminent domain, so they can't come in and say, I want your land and I want to be right there. So they have to look for a willing landlord. In this case, the county was a willing landlord having some available space at their facility. Their state regulations, their federal regulations, the local zoning ordinance comes into play. So all of these things have to intersect to really identify a suitable location for a site. And this goes through all the different areas. It is a search, and that's part of RENCI's job, is to find a location. When RENCI approached the county about, hey, we need a site, and this is the general area, I think there was some discussion about, having this county property be available and possibly being a good location for the RF standpoint, but also from having a willing landlord. This is from Patrick's slide. It shows you the subject site. And let's see if I can get right about here where the arrow's pointing is where the actual facility itself would be. This is that same overlay that shows the facility. One of the things that we're able to do, so there's a paved road coming into the refuse site, and it's paved just, I think, right to the edge here. So there's not a whole lot of impact that needs to be done to sort of clear that 50 by 50 fenced compound where the facility and the ground equipment will be. The remaining trees that are in that lease area would remain in place. So that provides a nice buffer. Certainly there is, one of the nice things about this site is the, let me go back. Yeah, there's nice buffer of trees on this site. You can see them through here. So you have mature trees and vegetation. This is the structure itself. It is, again, a 195-foot galvanized steel self-supporting monopole. There are going to be 4 locations on the tower. So Verizon Wireless will be at the top. As Patrick mentioned, there is going to be a spot for the county's emergency communications equipment. This is their property as the landlord. They made that request as part of the lease. And then there would be space for other carriers as well. What we find is that if somebody builds the infrastructure, the other carriers wanting to compete for the citizens will come in and install their antennas. Again, it's typically what happens. So we would anticipate potentially 3 additional users. This is the aerial network map that was, or the map for the balloon test and photo simulations. This just shows you the areas The site itself is in green, and then areas where we drove around and took photos. And then, as you'll see in the packet, this is the entrance. So this is right inside the compound or the refuse site, looking at the facility. And then what the simulated tower would look like. This is the photograph that Mr. Silva had. Another location here. This one, because of the way the trees are, this would be really in the trees, so you wouldn't be seeing it from this vantage point. Here's a vantage point from the road where you would see it. And then just wanted to point out one thing as you look at these. And as Mr. Bennett knows, it was a particularly windy day when we did the balloon test. So at times the balloon was straight up in the air. It's a 3-foot in diameter red balloon. So at times it was straight up in the air, at times it was not. This point it was not, but the engineers then go and show it upright what it would look like. So there's had to be some adjustments. We've had a lot of wind lately. This is another view. Here it's sticking straight up, you'll see, and then they've simulated the photo. So that's really gives you the best visual indication of what the impact would be. And again, because it's the galvanized steel monopole, it really does tend to blend in with the sky, whether it's, here you can see the balloon, whether it's a blue day or a gray day. There's another simulation. And then this is from further up the private gravel or the gravel driveway. All right. As was mentioned, the communication facility itself will benefit the general welfare of the citizens. It's an unmanned facility, so it doesn't, once it's constructed, there's no demand, there's no traffic, there's no wastewater, there's no sewer. It's really the ideal type of infrastructure because it's infrastructure that benefits, in this case, the county emergency communications and the citizens, and it doesn't cost the county anything to develop this infrastructure. The facility itself does comply with the county zoning ordinance and the comprehensive plan without really having a negative impact on the surrounding area. As Patrick mentioned, staff is recommending approval with 2 conditions, and one of the 2 references all of the performance standards that are in the zoning ordinance. So it does cover everything in the site plan. And we respectfully request that you recommend approval of CUP 04-25 to the board. And I'm happy to answer any questions that you have.
Mr. Chairman, I have a question. What is the so-called radius of the tower when you put up there? How much area are we covering?
So that's a good question. There are a lot of things that are going to affect how far the signal is going to go. So if you're out in the middle of the desert, not many people, you can have a signal. You can have towers that are 5, 6, 7 miles apart. But as you get into more and more sort of populated areas, especially where you've got trees and vegetation, the distance of that signal is going to start to shrink. So if the question is, why do we need a site, and we've got another one 2 miles away, that's just an indication of the usage, specifically on Pocahontas Trail, coming through there in the surrounding area.
I know at one point in time we used to have a map of our cellular towers, and we tried to be very careful that they didn't overlap each other. And Mr. Silva, I don't know if we still have those maps available. They were locations of all of the towers, and we knew the placements.
Our GIS staff may have them mapped up. We can double check on that.
And some future, I think that would probably be good. I don't like overlapping, but so much. But I do understand the usage, and then plus the layout of the land probably restricts, whether it's down in a low bottom or not. But yeah, so basically, would you say if you did put up an antenna that it would cover like a 5-mile radius?
It would. What we know from the RF engineers is it would provide better connection with those existing sites that you saw on the network map. It's not going to cover the whole county. I don't know necessarily that you would get, and I'm trying to get back to the network map, that you would get 5 miles. I mean, you can see there are several sites that Verizon's already on that are, within that 3 mile, 5 mile radius. So again, and this is another function of 5G. With 5G, you've got a signal that's going to be stronger, but it's not going to go as far. So all of those uses that you have, surfing the internet, Wi-Fi, Netflix, all of those things that you're doing, downloading, uploading from your phone, that's also going to shrink that signal. So that it's you really can't say exactly, but what I can tell you is based on the existing network that Verizon has, which is utilizing all of these other towers that are, some of them are theirs, some of them are county, some of them are other providers. This site helps them fill in that gap that they have in that particular area.
Okay.
Does this map depict all cell tower sites, or is it just those Verizon have either own or use?
Well, so it shows all the one that Verizon is using, but as a practical matter, if Verizon's on them, AT&T's on them, and other users are on them as well. So this really is all of the infrastructure that currently exists.
Madam Chair. Ms. Murphy, I read into some of the documentation that was provided that outlined that the tower, which is a monopole, self-collapsing within pretty much its own shadow.
Right.
Okay. It recognized that it's galvanized, and it kind of hinted that the galvanized pole is a requirement of the FAA. Is that true?
No. The galvanized pole tends to be one that blends most with the environment. If the FAA, if this was in a location where it would have to be marked or lit based on the FAA regulations, they might require painting of some kind. So it would be either a stripe painting or another painting to help pilots identify the location. This isn't one of those areas that would require that type of painting. So no, the painting is, other than for safety of pilots, is not a requirement.
My question was leading to has there ever been the exercise to disguise the pole? I'm not talking about putting full of brushes on it and making it look like a fake tree, but painting it. Disney Corporation, which is really sensitive on reusing structures that they've created for the entertainment, spent an inordinate amount of money of even patented or copywriting colors that they can paint their buildings or existing features so it blends in more naturally with the surroundings, even though they may not use that facility for years to come. So I'm wondering if there's been any notion of colorizing, painting, disguising it really simply so it does blend in with the atmosphere that's in the locality.
So what I can say is that the galvanized steel, and why I mentioned that the galvanized steel tends to blend with all sort of environmental conditions, is that if you were to paint that pole, and I've seen some that are painted blue, let's say, you pick a color blue, then on a gray day or a snowy day, then it's gonna stick out. And then you also have the maintenance issue of having to continue to repaint and make sure it looks nice. I've seen some where they painted the bottom brown and the top blue, thinking that it might blend a little bit better. But what we tend to find is that the galvanized steel, because it does reflect the sky, is better in different types of environmental conditions, if that makes sense.
The second component of my questioning actually has to do with that photo right there. Mm-hmm. If I looked at the site plan for the erection of the tower, it would seem that there is some clearing to be accomplished on that roughly rectangular or square site to accommodate some underground cabling, whether it's power or fiber bleeding from the ground. from Route 60 and then to access it from the transfer site. So going back to picture number 1 that you had with the representation of the tower on it, really those trees at the base of the tower would not be there from this view, correct?
Yes, but you'd have the trees behind it.
I know
so
the trees behind it, but just from this view, the other ones would remain.
I think, I think they've, this would be sort of a compilation of the trees behind and in front. But this shows you this is the gate into the facility.
Right.
And it's paved.
It's paved all the way over to
all
the
way
other
to
side of
edge,
the
right,
fence, yeah.
Where that corner is,
Yeah.
yeah. And they would certainly try to minimize the tree removal because, again, you've got a nice buffer of trees. But that 50 by 50 compound, they would have to clear the compound itself. Let me get back to that, yeah. So that shows the compound, not the 100 by 100, which is the
No,
least
I
area.
understand
That's
that.
the bigger area. And then I think it's the telco would actually come from Pocahontas Trail, so that would come in from the right-of-way. You can see at the bottom of the screen.
Final question, 200-foot tower, the erection of the tower will be done aerially or by boom?
So they stack it with a crane. So
Okay.
it comes in pieces. I think they're 50-foot sections, and they depending on the ground conditions, they'll have to do a geotech. They will actually dig a hole, fill it with concrete, and then they bolt the bottom of the pole, because it's hollow on the inside, to that foundation, and then they stack it. So literally 50-foot sections.
So basically the crane would be probably positioned in the waste management area, the transfer station area.
In the compound, in that
Yeah.
existing paved area itself, yeah.
If it was by helicopter, I would want to watch, so.
No, they just bring it in with a crane, sorry.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Madam Chair, the one question I have is, I don't know if it's constructed yet, but there's a new tower at Riverside Road. Is that the Chickahominy one you're talking about? Because I doubt if that's functional yet.
Yeah,
Oh, yeah, like 2.5 miles away from this one,
right, and that is, so this.
which
this-
you'll be on top of also, right?
Yes, so this network includes, sorry, I went back too far. The map that I showed you included existing and then anywhere that we've got an agreement, and that one is close to constructed. Do you know if the antennas have been installed yet? Oh, no. Yeah, some of these are in process, so we started this, back in October, so that would be utilized as well. So that really goes to the point of anything that's existing, they're utilizing, and this is one of those. It's a tremendous investment, and so if there was something else there that they weren't using that they could be using, they would be.
Madam Chair, will there be a generator on site associated with this, standby generator?
Typically, they do have a standby generator, and that's so at the antenna sites, they have backup battery packs that are 7 to 8 hours. A lot of times we have power outages that last longer than that, so they do have a backup generator, and it was mentioned by the previous speaker, those generators get tested every so often to make sure they're still working. But it wouldn't be any louder than a regular generator at a residence.
So there'll be fuel storage on site as well for the generator, like I presume a diesel generator?
Do you know? Yeah, they prefer diesel.
Okay, so containment and everything is all included?
Mm-hmm. And it would be part of that environmental review that Patrick mentioned.
You mentioned 5G, and so, lots of chatter in the world about 5G. Is it killing the bees? Is it bad for us? Like, what's the real story?
I don't think it. I think they found another answer for why the bees are dying. The 5G it's a higher frequency. So original networks were built out, and certainly Verizon's, because they have been around longest. That was at 900 megahertz, 850 megahertz. Signal is going to go a long distance. It's not going to be able to carry the data. So now we're in the upper frequencies. But there's a NEAR report or a safety report in your packet. The emissions at the ground level will be below 1% of what is the federal government limitation. So it's very, very minimal impact at the ground level.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Madam Chair, I have a question. In a previous presentation, they said that the range was about 2.5 miles. If that be so, are you coming back now? Because what's there probably is not covering everything.
Well, I don't know necessarily if we have other applications pending, but I know that Verizon and with their partner Vertical Bridge are going back into communities, especially some more rural communities, to really build out their infrastructure. So the way they allocate resources is the RF engineers look at their map and they say, okay, we're getting calls about drop calls here, or we're getting complaints here, or this is where we know we need to be to complete the network to make it work the way we want it to work. And then they go to the bean counters and they say, okay, do we have funding? Where do we have funding? And the dollars get moved around. So it's a matter of matching up the RF needs, the customer complaints, with the allocation of resources for, Southeastern Virginia in this case. So they are, as I mentioned, doing a great job of going back into communities and filling in areas that have been underserved or where they've had some issues with connectivity.
And the follow-up question, have you talked to the nearest neighbor? How far is the nearest neighbor?
So we, as was mentioned, when we did the balloon test, and as part of the application package, we actually sent out notices. We went out 300 feet, and those were the letters that we sent out with an explanation, with a copy of that site plan, with my contact information, with Rencie's contact information. There were folks that came and talked to us during the balloon test, and so we were able to speak with folks at that point. Mr. Bennett came out. I think Patrick, did you come out? No, Patrick didn't come out. But there were folks that came, and that was the purpose for advertising from 8 a.m. to noon, that we would be there, that there'd be somebody on site so that folks could come and ask questions.
So how close is the nearest residence?
I think one of your drawings says 950 feet to
Yeah,
nearest
let me
off-site
go back
residential structure.
I don't know that it's on here, but you're exactly right. Typically, we identify on the zoning drawings the closest. And that's one of the things about this particular site is it's fairly remote. Let me see if I can find. Yeah, I think it's 920 feet to the closest off-site residential structure. Or 950 feet is what it says, and I'm on sheet Z1, and that would be across, it looks like it's across Pocahontas Trail. So I think I don't know if that's the residential structure right there. I can't tell from the aerial, yeah.
It may be the ones to the southwest.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the arrow is pointing down this way, and it goes off the page, so. But definitely on the south side of Pocahontas Trail. And we went around, like I said, the notices there were 25 notices, but everything around both sides, all the way around the property adjacent to the facilities, or the refuse site.
Fortunately, we get so much mail that people don't always pay attention to it.
I think you're right. And I go back and forth because I do this a lot. Sometimes I send out a postcard because that's less threatening. Most often it's a letter in, that says Wilcox Savage, and it had the materials enclosed. Some people don't like getting letters from law firms. It's hard. I've done it, like I said, I've done it both ways, either a letter or a postcard. But we did send those out, and then the publication that was 2 weeks in the newspaper.
could you please let your RF engineers know that I can't send text messages or receive phone calls from the food line in Providence Forge? Providence Forge is a cellular dead zone. That'd be nice if that was,
We will relay that. And Rentsy's job is to find sites. So they decide where they need them, where they have the funding to support them, and then she goes out and looks for them. So. Yeah. I mean, in this day and age, it's a shame. There are a lot of dead zones, a lot of places. And so, but Vertical Bridge and Verizon are investing.
Is it likely the need for this tower because of saturation or frequency of calls is because of the roadway and not the homes?
I think it's probably a combination, because if you look up and down the road, the homes are towards the road frontage anyway, along both sides. It's just the demand in a particular area, and it's out of radius from the site. Might it be 2.5 miles, 5 miles? Where I live, there's a site every mile. It's that densely populated. And those sites can be a little bit shorter. They're 120, 130 feet, but there are more of them because they're, covering a more dense population.
Ms. Murphy, I'm going to segue on Mr. Davis's question. The analysis to identify this dead zone, was that of most recent discovery, or was that done 2 years ago? And then I'll supplement with my thought process. Okay. I thought maybe it was due to the higher traffic volume that's being seen along Route 60 because people are trying to avoid the construction work on Interstate 64. But if it was done 2 years ago, then that's free history.
And some of these sites that we're going back and identifying and trying to get use permits for have been in the build plans for years, and they just get kicked around, and they get moved down the list in priority, and then they come back around. So I mean, there are many sites that have been worked on for years. And it goes back to that whole intersection. You got to find a willing landlord. You've got to have it work for RF, and then you've got to be able to satisfy the state, local, and federal requirements.
One last question. As technology improves, do you see any alternatives to 200 feet towers?
So as there will be more, and there will be closer together. If you think of it in a way like your high power transmission lines, you've got those high power transmission lines, and then off of those come the smaller, closer together. It's similar to that, and it just depends on the amount of usage and the density of the population and the topography. In this case, the road sits lower. As you start to go up Old Telegraph Road, you're going up, and I think there's a ravine that runs through the middle of the property. So you're definitely dealing with foliage and topography in the area.
Higher frequency wavelengths travel less distance.
Shorter, like a small pebble in a pond versus a gigantic rock in a pond.
Any other questions right now? All right.
Thank you.
Thank you. We'll move on to the public comment portion. There's only one name, Whitney Ward.
Good evening. My name is Whitney Ward. My address is 12488 Old Telegraph Road. My husband and I own the adjacent 157-acre parcel that is bordering the proposed tower site. We own and operate at Allen's Campground just a few miles down the road. And we also own a 60-acre parcel that is diagonal across Route 60. I'm here tonight to express my strong opposition to the application for the proposed Verizon Tower on Old Telegraph Road. My family purchased this property in the year 2020. Since then, we've received numerous offers from solar farms, developers, individuals that I'm sure this committee is familiar with. We ultimately decided to build our forever home and preserve the rural peace, natural beauty, and tranquility that define this area of the county. We were issued our building permit, and 6 days later in the mail, we received the notification about the tower. It's beautiful land. It's currently being managed in a forestry program. Our new home that is currently under construction sits on a hill which is 120 feet above Route 60. The introduction of a nearly 200-foot industrial tower would completely undermine every characteristic that I mentioned before. The tower's appearance, lighting, everything would drastically alter the landscape and permanently impact the aesthetic and environmental value of the land we have invested in and cared deeply about. So if you're looking at this map right here, this parcel is the tower. This entire plat here is ours. And this location right here is the 120-foot raised hill that we are currently building our house on. During the balloon test, this right here, this balloon, this picture is directly taken from our home site that is currently under construction. While we understand the need for reliable wireless service, our business at Allen's Campground was even one of the businesses mentioned affected in the September Board of Supervisors meeting. We just feel the project is simply inappropriately sited. The proposed tower is incompatible with surrounding agricultural and low-density residential land uses. It conflicts with the very purpose of A1 zoning, which is meant to protect open space and rural character, not introduce industrial infrastructure. The visual impacts of this tower alone are substantial. This tower will dominate the skyline, visible from our property and public roadways such as Pocahontas Trail and Old Telegraph Road. Landscaping and fencing cannot hide. Sorry.
You can
I'll wrap it.
take a second
Yep,
to wrap up.
can hide a structure of this height. Once constructed, the damage to the scenic landscape is done. There are legitimate concerns about property value and livability. An industrial tower adjacent to private land negatively affects desirability and long-term investment, especially for families who, like ours, have committed to the community with the expectation that rural protections would be upheld. I'll skip over a lot. Most importantly, we know that alternatives exist. Co-locations on existing towers, she touched on that, but placement within commercial or industrial zones should be fully explored before placing this tower in a rural area. I won't take up much of your time, but I do respectfully urge the Planning Commission to recommend denial of this conditional use permit. Protecting New Kent County's rural integrity today ensures that it has a place where families can invest in and call home tomorrow. Thank you for your time.
That's the only speaker for tonight. Is there anyone else that wishes to speak? Hearing none, I'm going to close the public hearing and turn it back over to the chairman.
Thank you, Ms. Rose. Any other questions of staff or the applicant or?
I'd like to see the pictures that are from her house.
while we're looking at the pictures. Any other discussions or any comments?
So, Mr. Chairman, so I think Ms. Ward raised a good question. This is not a really densely populated area in the county. So, for the Verizon rep, when you talk about usage and demand and that type of thing, that is not heavily populated in that area.
Right.
Within the 2 mile radius or whatever it is, whether it's a 5 mile or 2 mile, there's not a lot there.
Right, and if you look at the distance of the other sites that it would be connecting to, so it's in this area, they've got a coverage issue. And what's happening is these existing sites that they're operating on are not able to provide the signal capacity to cover that area. So it's that area about, if you want to call it 2 miles out, 2.5 miles out from that red dot is the area that we're trying to cover. I will say, just for clarity, the tower will not be marked or lit. It's not required to have any lighting on it from the FAA. We did go back to try to identify, because Ms. Ward was one of the people that came down, we did try to identify the property. So if you come up Old Telegraph Road here, that was as far as we could get. This section of it is private, but as far as we can tell, the job site was somewhere up here. Obviously, putting the facility 90 feet off of Pocahontas Trail, and this is a much lower spot than what's up there, so it's not something that you're going to see out on the vista. It'll be down below towards the road and the other infrastructure along the roadway.
Question, Mr. Chair. One of the comments, when you go back to where all the towers are,
Mm-hmm.
You mentioned all the dead zone on the right of your red dot.
Mm-hmm.
Well, how do we know if that's a dead zone? Because the tower's not built yet.
So, as I mentioned,
I'd like to see some kind of proof that what you estimate that will come from the new tower that hasn't been built yet will not make up that area that is not served.
So again, one of the challenges that we have, and I say challenge, it's not a challenge. In 2018, the General Assembly adopted specifically a zoning ordinance for wireless infrastructure. And one of the things that they included in the state law was that the proprietary maps or the propagation maps can't be required. And the applicant's purpose or business reason for wanting to be at a location can't be required. So working with the RF engineers, what I try to do is exactly what you're asking, and that is to say, okay, here is, I can show you where the existing towers are because you can drive by and see those, and where Verizon's operating, or in the case of Chickahominy, will be operating, hopefully soon, co-locating their antennas. And the RF engineers identify a location. Is this going to satisfy all the issues with Providence Forge and further to the west? No. They're likely going to need to be, at least an additional tower. But what the RF engineers are saying is that given these existing sites that they have either on the air or planned, and the Providence Forge site, that this will help to provide coverage in this area. And that's where they start, is with the radio frequency analysis. And then they send the RENCIs and other folks like RENCI out to the field to identify a suitable location. It's a challenge because you've got to, it's got to meet the radio frequency needs. And certainly what I can say is if there wasn't a need, we wouldn't be here. Vertical Bridge wouldn't be spending the money. Verizon wouldn't be spending the money. They wouldn't have entered into a lease with the county for the land. So there's definitely a need. They feel that this particular location at 200 feet helps them provide the coverage that they're trying to provide to connect with those existing network sites that are on the air. Will not fully provide service to the west. Obviously, there are some additional locations that could very well be required. But this is the location that works for the radio frequency engineers to provide the best coverage in that particular area that they can.
And I guess regarding any collateral benefit as far as you said there's a space allocated for public safety or repeater. Is that, do we know, is there a need or will they take advantage of that position on that pole?
My understanding is they don't have a current need, but in the future, the way the lease document was drafted, they've got the ability to install their equipment on the tower free of charge. And that's as part of the lease, not as part of a zoning or a condition.
Mr. Chairman, so just north of that location, there's Dominion right-of-way with transmission lines. Right, you can see I can see it right up there, that's correct. And then running down to about 4 o'clock position, go up, right there, that white line that comes up and then it angles down and runs all the way to the Lenexa substation. There's transmission lines right there with towers. Do you ever co-locate antennas on Dominion towers, and is that an option here?
So that would, if those transmission towers had been tall enough and further to the southwest, that might have been an option. So the power company has a whole division that all they do is lease space on their poles to wireless carriers. So that is an option that's always explored as existing infrastructure, but in this case, the lines are too far out of the search ring, and the towers themselves would be limited to the height of those existing transmission structures. There is a process, just to explain a little bit. If you have an interest in using a Dominion or another electric provider's poles, you do have to go through an application process. They have to make sure that it's structurally sound. We didn't even get to that point because it wasn't high enough and close enough to the center of that search ring where the engineers wanted to be.
So Dominion has a project right now. They're going to rebuild everything that you see in that right-of-way, or at least half of what is contained in that right-of-way is going to be raised and erected on monopole towers that are equal, I believe, in a height to what you're proposing. So there is a rebuild project on the books right now that is going to start in 2026. I'm already getting things in the mail because this runs across my property. So there will be new towers, transmission towers, monopole towers in that right-of-way that runs between Providence Forge and Lenexa substation.
And I think that would provide other opportunities. Again, if they weren't already on the Providence Forge tower, again, if you look at where that is, that pulls it closer to an existing site. So this is only just over 2 miles between the red dot or the red pin and the yellow pin. So again, they're already up here. If they weren't up here, that might be something in addition to this tower that would make sense, but they're already at the Providence Forge tower, which I understand doesn't provide the coverage to all of Providence Forge.
Mr. Chairman.
Good, Reverend.
Let me follow up again. In order to cover the whole area, how many additional towers do you need?
So to cover the area between the existing antennas that Verizon's operating on, they feel like this will provide the coverage in here and with the existing site at Providence Forge. Might they need something down here in the future that's a few miles to the west here, southwest? That's entirely possible. So what we're trying to do is cover this area to connect what these existing antennas that they've got on the air at these sites. If you see the 3 sites really primarily, this fits in between those. There are plenty of other areas 2, 3, 4 miles away that they're likely are going to need additional sites. Does that answer your question?
It'd be helpful to know those sites so that if we have residents getting ready to build, they know up front that there's a possibility that another tower's coming there.
I will say that we did, so Ms. Ward did come down during the balloon test, and we did ask the county because we couldn't figure out where, obviously this part's private, we couldn't get any further. And I don't know that Mr. Silva was able to identify a building permit for home site. So we weren't able to get, if you go up to here, it's about a third of a mile from here to where the clearing is, but we don't know where the home site is because there wasn't any. We checked and there wasn't any permit information available. I don't know, Patrick, do you want to?
Yeah, so I might need to check if the status of any building permits have changed. At the time that the balloon test was conducted and folks came to the site, the wards came to the site mentioning that they were looking at building the home there, my recollection is there was not an approved building permit or submitted building permit for the home site in our system, but I can go back to double check that and see where things are at as far as that process.
Any other questions from commissioners?
Mr. Chairman, just for discussion purpose for a second, I like the idea of reuse or additional uses on sites. Here we have our transfer station, which is in essence, if you think about it, really a kind of an industrial. We're exchanging materials and having them transported outside. And then there's a potential monopole there for cellular use, a similar type use, again, industrial, and it's on one site. Instead of finding an additional site elsewhere in the county for the same exact purposes, why not combine the kind of uses into one use, one central location? That's my thought.
Any other comments or discussion? If not, I'll entertain a motion.
Mr. Chair.
Mr. Bennett.
In order to address, protect, and promote public convenience, necessity, general welfare, and good zoning practice in the county, I move to adopt Resolution PC 2325 to forward application CEP 0525 to the New Kent Board of Supervisors with a favorable recommendation.
Thank you, Mr. Bennett. We have a motion to approve CEP 0425 with a favorable recommendation to the Board of Supervisors. Mr. Ryder, can you poll the commissioners?
Ms. Townsend,
Aye.
Mr. Moyer,
Abstain.
Mr. Dombrowski,
Aye.
Mr. La Rochelle,
Aye.
Dr. Schmidt,
Aye.
Mr. Bennett,
Aye.
Ms. Rose,
Aye.
Reverend Hathaway,
Aye.
Mr. Davis.
Aye. With that, motion carries with a favorable recommendation to the board, CEP 0425. All right. Next on the agenda, Chairman's report. I don't have much of a report for you other than I do appreciate everyone's hard work and efforts throughout this past year. This is our last meeting, of course, for 2025. And also a reminder, everybody is, I guess, lack of a better term, safe from being replaced this year. So no one's being, no one's up on the block this year. So we'll see all the same bright smiling faces next year, which is good. So also to consider, 2026 elections will occur in the first meeting, organizational meeting, and I will, even though we can succeed ourselves in the based on the bylaws, I would ask that you do not consider me for chairman next year. I do have not to make excuses, but I do have a busy schedule back to being full time at my other life work, and I'm also on other boards as well, to which I'm a chair as well. So I have enjoyed my time as the chair. It's been a great learning experience for me. But I know we have some great other folks who can who've done it before or can do it, and I look forward to the elections next year. And so please give some thought on what your interests are, and we'll move on from there. The Plan RVA report.
Mr. Chairman, I sent the Plan RVA information out. December 4th, we had our annual meeting, and so the first part was just networking with our colleagues, and then a review of all the things we've done for the year. So hopefully, if you look at that report, and if there are questions about that, I'd be happy to answer.
All right. Thanks, sir. I did see that and read over it. Thank you. All right. Commissioner reports. Mr. LaRochelle.
No, sir.
Mr. Dabrowski.
Not at this time.
Ms. Townsend.
Yes, sir. Just for the Planning Commission Department, I'd like for them to hear my advice. I've been still reading over the zoning ordinances that I wanted to make some recommendations, but then I reached a point of frustration.
Frustration.
Frustration. I was really flustered. But the problem I've had with reading the zoning ordinances, I read one thing, but then there's also an exception somewhere else in another zoning, which I feel at some point in time we need, I don't know if you can link the items to say that there's possibility another ordinance that you need to look at to say to cover this one, or if you could just put a mark in the paperwork, saying that, this little hash sign means there is something else that pertains to it. But such as the, buffer setback, but then the buffer also has to go to if it's a scenic byway, that one, how would anybody ever know if they're reading it that they have to go to this one? So at that point in time, I kind of just got lost reading it. So I think that would need to be a big discussion. We need to sort of solve that, saying that if there is something else that goes along with this one, we need to have some kind of mark saying that we have to refer to this one.
Yeah, if I might just respond really quick. You're identifying something we are frustrated with staff on a daily basis, and a lot of those inconsistencies and intercontradictions and referencing you all over the ordinance and then back again. These are things we're hoping to clean up in their entirety and make much simpler as part of the ordinance update that will be undertaken in these next couple months and kicking off. So you've really hit upon something that staff is focused on cleaning up and making a lot easier to read and making much more of common sense regulations to interpret for anyone who might be needing to reference them.
Thank you.
Reverend?
Yeah, I have a question relative to that. Have you selected someone to work with the zoning ordinance?
So I think Mr. Aragi might have an update for us on that very topic a little bit later on as we get to staff reports. But yeah, we do have some updates for you.
Well, as the commission's representative to the Housing Advisory Committee, I was not able to attend the last meeting, but the committee made a presentation to the board at their November work session. And out of that, I sensed that it would be helpful if the committee reported or presented to the Planning Commission. And so I think they're going to plan to do that early in next year. Good.
So, I'm sorry, Reverend Hathaway, I have a question about the Housing Advisory Commission. When you look at the county website for meeting schedule, it says they'll meet as deemed necessary by the chairperson or something, and then it doesn't have a meeting schedule that I could find on the county page. And then I think I saw the last meeting was at 3 o'clock during the afternoon, which, that excludes, I don't know if that's your regular meeting time or what, but that excludes a lot of folks who are at work. So are those meetings publicized, or are they required to be publicized?
Mr. Shine does it, and I'm not sure where. He sends out emails, but we meet the first Wednesday of every month. And I would suggest staff, if you could look at how we get that publicized on our site. Okay. Sure.
Dr. Schmidt?
Nothing.
Mr. Bennett?
Yes, sir. Thank you. First off, Mr. Raggi, Mr. Silva, Mr. Reimert, and the other staff members, thank you for a great year. You did your lion's share of work. You should be commended for all that. The last 6 months of last year, I'm sure was a little bit challenging for you with hiring new staff and all. It went off without a hitch, and this year was pretty smooth. I congratulate all. Mr. Davis, thank you very much for leading us this past year. Sorry that you would not be able to continue that trend, but we do have a lot of talented people who maybe step up to that challenge. And to everybody here, happy holidays. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Bennett. Ms. Rose?
Nothing at this time. I hope everybody enjoys the holidays.
Mr. Moyer?
Yes. At our last planning commission meeting, what was brought up was a public hearing on child care facility at the Providence Methodist Church, and the board of supervisors approved that 5-0 with the recommendations that the staff had and the planning commission. The woman that's going to be running it was thrilled, and it's going to be a very good business for the county. I also like to thank the staff too for a really good year. We know the challenges, and the next two will be even better or more meaningful or something like that. And we appreciate the whole group that works down there and all the employees that are in the staff of New Kent County. They're the best. Thank you.
Yep, and thank you all again. I'm remiss in not thanking staff as well, but Aiden, thank you very much. We've had very few corrections here, so and believe me, some of us really look. so excellent work. And again, and I know for Mr. Bennett and myself, when we meet with staff with the agenda meetings, again, Mr. Raggi and Mr. Silva, obviously everything is laid out and answers all our questions. So I am pleased, as well as proud of all of our New Kent staff. And again, it's I wish everybody the best over the holidays, and look forward to seeing everybody next year. And with that, I'll entertain a motion. Oh, well, maybe not.
May I bring up one more topic?
Yes.
Mr. Silver sometime back mentioned to me about the possibility of moving this meeting forward 30 minutes on the same days that it occurs. I don't know if that works in anybody's schedule. I think it may be beneficial for some of our staff, especially, like we're approaching 10 after 9 tonight. They do have lives, okay, like you have a life, but 6, yeah. I'm just wondering, is that a possibility? Forward, yeah, forward in time. No, our 6:30 is what we meet now, to move it up to 6.
Right, that's moving it back.
Oh, to me it means ahead of time. But you get what I mean, okay? I don't know what it takes to do that, but is that something that would be amenable to the commissioners? Or I know we probably have to adjust our bylaws, but this is the time we have to adjust our bylaws anyway, going into next year, blah, 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 blah.
That would be a simple bylaw fix. Moving forward to 6 o'clock, or backwards, depending on how you look at it, would also align this commission with pretty much every other public body that we have, the Board of Supervisors, Board of Zoning Appeals. Any of those kind of decision-making authorities typically start at 6, and then we wait for the public hearing until 6:30. If we have a speedy agenda, we can go ahead and do reports and stuff and shift the agenda around on that night. But it would be a bylaw fix or change. We will be looking at the bylaws in January. So if that is something that, you're not going to get any complaints from staff on that one. But if it does, work for you guys as well, we can certainly make that adjustment when we do the bylaws in January.
Well, I would suggest maybe we do a straw vote right now. Anybody interested in 6 o'clock? Signify by showing your hand.
We will send you a draft set of bylaws then. as part of the January meeting packet.
Yes, and I,
So are you adjusting the January meeting then to 6?
Yeah, so that was my other point. We need a simple motion to set the January meeting date and time. And then at the January meeting, as part of your packet, you will get a schedule for the year like you usually do. And at the January meeting, we will vote on the rest of the year.
okay, so we need a motion.
Are you okay with it, Ms. Rose? Yeah, okay.
All right.
Yeah, I can make that work.
So,
Except for January and February, it might be.
and that's only because they're Tuesdays, those, I mean,
There'll be
right?
Tuesdays also.
Yeah, that's why it's,
That's
yeah.
why. That's why you.
Yeah.
January and February meetings are on Tuesday.
Right.
Yeah.
All right, so, well, all right, as chair, I can make a motion as well, so I'm gonna make a motion.
How about it?
I'll make a motion that the January 20th, 2026 meeting shall be held at 6 p.m. here in the boardroom for the next planning commission meeting. Mr. Ryder, we have a motion. Could you poll the commissioners?
Ms. Townsend,
Aye.
Mr. Moyer,
Aye.
Mr. Dombrowski,
Aye.
Mr. La Rochelle,
Aye.
Dr. Schmidt,
Aye.
Mr. Bennett,
Aye.
Ms. Rose,
Aye.
Reverend Hathaway,
Aye.
Mr. Davis.
Aye, motion carries. We will meet at 6 o'clock, January 20th. It is a Tuesday, in 2026. So how many people are going to be 30 minutes late?
But if there's
said I would
any
adjust.
public hearings, those will still be advertised for 6:30.
Correct, similar to the board. So the board meetings start at 6, public hearings don't start until 6:30 or later.
And the first meeting, anyway, the organizational part of it takes a little time anyway, so
Yeah.
that shouldn't be a
For
problem.
everybody's information, the Board of Supervisors meeting has also been changed. That's the 13th, which is the Tuesday. Not the, 13th, right? Yeah. It's a Tuesday, not the Monday, okay? Just January, just.
All right, and then one last, to answer the question about the comprehensive ordinance rewrite, to give an update on that. So we have selected a contractor. We are moving forward with contract execution with the Berkeley Group. They are, I believe, based out of Bridgewater, Virginia, have remote people throughout the state. Zoning and subdivision ordinances, comp plans, planning consultant work is pretty much their bread and butter. They've done, I think they're currently working on Nelson and Spotsylvania and Isle of Wight. They did King George. I think they're working on City of Hopewell as well. And they do the full gambit of, planning consulting services. We expect to have that contract authorization probably in January. It will be kind of a 3-phase approach from them, an investigation period, development period, and adoption period, and obviously a slew of tasks under each of those items. More or less, we'll have an initial kickoff meeting with them once we have the contract execution. We will see joint Planning Commission and Board of Supervisor meetings throughout next year and the coming year. Planning for an 18 to 24 month timeline. Obviously, some of that is dependent on meeting schedules and how quickly this goes. Planning for several focus groups, public workshops, some pop-up events at larger community events like Farmers Market Kickoff Weekend would be a good one. Just to kind of get the word out, there will be project branding and website and all the good stuff that usually goes with these projects. We're looking forward to it. We feel good about the Berkeley Group and are really looking forward to working with them.
Thank you, Mr. Aragi. Now, with that, since I skipped over them to get to the meeting schedule, now I think we have everything settled, right? No,
Well, just one last staff item. So Reverend Hathaway teed me up quite nicely earlier, but as you all saw earlier tonight, the ongoing work of the Housing Advisory Committee is a really hot topic here in the county and clearly of interest to the Planning Commission. And since it's come up a number of times, as Reverend Hathaway mentioned, at their last meeting, the Housing Advisory Committee members expressed their willingness to come to this commission at one of our meetings and make a presentation on their ongoing work and the forthcoming recommendations they'll be making to the Board of Supervisors. So not too dissimilar from the presentation that the board themselves got. So I, as staff, was interested in kind of polling you all on the commission to gauge general interest for something like that, and if so, whether or not the commission might have a preference for when that take place, whether that be on the January docket of 2026 or February, just to kind of put that on your all's radar.
Normally on our January dockets, we've got the capital improvements funding or the budget for consideration, but usually we don't have other items. Is that correct? Other than the elections, or do we move things around so that we just concentrate on those two items and the others are considered later, or have we had other items to come up on January?
Well, the only other item that will be on that agenda, as you mentioned, so there will be the actual CIP item, and then the actual elections, bylaw updates, that sort of stuff. And the only other item is another private roadway request, similar to what you saw with Mr. Randall's request this evening. Otherwise, there are no formal public hearing items on for the January docket.
Mr. Chairman, I would suggest the sooner the better. This group has been meeting for almost a year and a half, possibly moving into 2 years now. Let's not hold them up. Let's see what they've come up with.
Understood.
Well, they presented to us before, right?
They have, but they have not presented to this commission the recommendations where we can discuss with them some of the nuances of those recommendations, similar to what the board did.
Well, with that being the case, I'd be happy as staff to kind of relay that to the chair people of that committee, Mr. Shine, Mr. Dismore, and coordinate with them to make sure that happens at their next meeting.
Good. Sounds like a plan.
Thank you very much.
Okay. All right. Thank you all. It is almost 20 after 9, so. So moved, yeah. So, Mr. Bennett, there was a movement for adjournment. All right. Thank you all.